Hi, everyone. This is episode 8 of Beaker and Wrench Minicast. My name is Ace Shalander. I'm co-founder and CEO of Beaker and Wrench, and I'll be your host. I'm excited to have Andrew Beasley, co-owner and director of manufacturing from the award-winning extraction company Green Track, located in Maine, as our guest today. Thank you for joining us. And just a quick disclaimer, since we're talking about safety procedures in this episode, this is for informational purposes only. Please be sure to always research, follow federal, state, and local requirements and general good safety procedures. This is not a replacement for those. So let's jump into it. How did you get into cannabis?
So I think it's like many other people. It started in high school. I mean, obviously, you just start smoking and stuff like that, and then it evolves into something that became a career. We started growing, just with friends and stuff like that. Then we started extracting, and then that's where the passion really took off, is seeing what you really could do with the plant and stuff like that.
So, how did you start taking it? When did you start taking it seriously? What got you to get over that hump?
I think my biggest step to get me over that seriousness of life and stuff like that, and to make it a career, is when me and my wife picked up from Arizona and moved across country to Maine for the job. So I think that put a lot of, realization in my mind of what you needed to do, and, pushed it farther to where it, kept stepping bigger and bigger until we are here now. So it was definitely a huge step that we did, and I'm very thankful we did it too.
That's awesome. Was there a particular challenge that you faced, going to Maine or anywhere along the journey?
I mean, I think coming from the desert, going into, a winter state like that was probably the biggest fear that was in my mind and stuff like that. But other than that, I knew it was a good step. If I stayed in my hometown as a small closed circle, you would never grow. So I took that as a growing experience. And if I didn't, you would never know where. So you never want to have regret. So you just take off.
Right. You just got to go for it.
Yep.
I know that there's been this really strong cliche for being stoners in the industry. And I think recently there's been a shift in perspective that you really do need to be professional. You can't just be into the plant. How have you seen that?
So it goes back to taking it as a career. Once you start actually managing people and stuff like that, the biggest thing, everybody that wants to apply for a job in the cannabis industry wants that stoner lifestyle. You know what I mean? Once they realize that it's really not that, there's a lot of hard work that puts in the back end and stuff like that to make the products that people can enjoy and stuff like that. It puts a different perspective in their mind too. So right there alone is where you have to kind of draw the line of being the stoner and doing your job. So I think that was where the big thing was, and kind of just, the time and place to do it is where it comes in.
Right. It's we're not here to police what people do, but when you're on the job, you're on the job. We need you to be sober and attentive because this is really technical shit.
Yep. And there's, like you said, a lot of things there. There's multi issues that can happen with one fault. So you want to make sure everyone's on their point and stuff like that. So all processors and stuff like that, that's a at-home type thing. We want to make sure that we keep the lab as safe as possible and stuff like that. We have the packagers and stuff like that obviously indulge in lunches and stuff like that, which is fine. But again, once you see lack in, quality of work and, turning around time and stuff like that, you want to make sure that you dial it back in. So that's where it comes back to being that, role of showing them that it is a job, not just a sit at home and smoke. So
right. Did you have any moments of self-doubt for yourself?
So I mean, there's always going to be self-doubt in your mind, but you want to make sure that you can kind of overcome that. And I knew I wasn't perfect at everything. So knowing what I was good at and making that better, and then obviously working on the things that we weren't good at and using that as our training and all of our education, that's where it would go into, is the things that we weren't perfect at. We have issues in things, there's reasons why. So we wanted to figure out why. Other people can do things, we want to know why. You know what I'm saying? We want to be able to have everything that we could do under our belt.
I really like that, desire for understanding, because I really relate to that. I was like, hey, I'm really good at these things, and I can bring people onto my team that are good at other things, but the constant trying to understand why something happened, how we can improve. I think
You can't
that,
teach somebody that if you don't know. That's the biggest thing that I try and tell people is like, I can show you all that I know, but if I don't understand things and realize what is happening, I can't really teach you with confidence.
yes, yes, getting to the root of that understanding and having that drive for it, yeah, is very hard to teach because you have to be like brought up in that like I think of it as like a physics based mindset of like the why.
Exactly. So on me alone, I don't think I could be that much of a teacher. You know what I'm saying? I'm more of a doer. So I show people by doing it. And it's more or less that. And that's how you start people right there and stuff.
Nice. What's the business advice that you've been given so far?
I think all advice is good. You know what I mean? It's just whether or not it fits in my lifestyle or my career path is how it is. And it goes back to, dissecting everything. People say things for a reason, whether or not it fits in your life or that time. It will always resonate in my mind. Whether or not I use it or not, I wouldn't say it's good or bad. It's advice. It's same thing with people critiquing your extracts and stuff like that. Everyone has their own opinion. And said that their opinion didn't matter, then you would never be able to grow. So everyone's opinion matters, and I take it with a grain of salt, and I learn from it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that like listen to everything, right? But don't follow everything.
Exactly.
I love that. Because yeah, you can't listen to everyone, you can't please everyone, but listening and understanding that like breadth of perspective, like yeah, it gives you more detail that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
As a lot of things I do learn don't actually play the time in the place immediately, but then I'll go 6 months, a year, something like that, and it will click in my mind that I learned this, and then it will be like, wow, that is why I learned it, and it goes back to now you've learned why you learned it back in the 6 months ago is because it was going to be something you're going to use in the future.
Yeah, or something that like someone was telling you about, I don't know, some little detail of like their experience. Of like, I've never seen that before. What are you talking about? And then like sometimes on the lows, like, oh, this is what they were talking about. I understand this now. I have a little perspective that I wouldn't have had if I didn't remember that tidbit of information.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Ooh, what's the worst business advice that you've been given so far?
Worst is hard because it's the same thing too. It's like I'll still take it and stuff, but again, it's anyone can do anything. So that's what I've learned in my life too. Is if somebody out there in the world can do it, you can do it. So I make sure that I try and keep negative thoughts out of my head because they drown you. You want to make sure that you think positive and go for the positive ones. If I always thought about my negative things, I probably wouldn't sleep very good at night.
Yes, I definitely have that challenge. Like sometimes it's like everything's going and there's all these things to listen to and you're worried about it. It's like, no, you got to focus on the positive. You got to keep moving forward. And that's the only way anyone's going to improve and that the situation is going to get better.
Yeah, nothing's perfect, but I've learned that in the cannabis industry as well as the extract side is you got to be a problem solver. Many times, you can go home and issues can arise that were hands off just because they were left in the oven overnight that you would have no see on. So just being able to solve problems and adapt to what happens and still give the consumer the product that they want and stuff like that is huge.
That's awesome. Uh, so now that we've talked about a little bit of the journey and the business, let's talk about safety. Um, let's start off by telling the viewers what kind of equipment are you currently using to distill?
So distillate equipment, we have just a short path, and we
Mhm.
use, of course, your Beaker and Wrench wiped film top head.
Thank you.
What is it? Um, I forgot exactly what you guys called it. The
We call it the steelhead. It's a
steel.
coaxial condenser, stainless steel condenser.
So thank you. I wanted to make sure I said it right on that one. But
Mhm.
that thing is honestly, that's the only piece that we need. Just us putting that on our short path changed our entire game. We used to always be distilling probably 3-4 times a week and stuff like that. Just adding that little piece, we kind of adapted all the fittings to where it was seamless, no grease, nothing, very easy. And it's just a plug and play right there. Obviously, we use a roto and stuff like that, but it all comes down to the short path.
Nice. And what kind of daily safety procedures do you have for that equipment?
So that equipment right there alone it's pretty. I mean, we probably run that thing twice a week now. That alone is just it's a single operator. Been doing it for years. You have your nose and stuff like that. Obviously, you want to use your heat gloves if you're touching anything hot. You have the heat gun. So that's my biggest fear right there in a lab is those actual heat guns. So I put that fear in the users that use it just so they know that they need to be cautious of their surroundings. We have a hydrocarbon lab in the same building that we use distillation. They have a lot more fumes and volatiles that are in the building, in the booth specifically. So, you got somebody walking with a pour out or something like that. You have to be extremely cautious of things like that. I mean, that's where all those, videos you see come from, is those heat guns and stuff like that. So I make sure that is the top priority, that nobody is doing anything pretty much when he's doing that, clearing distillate out of the balls and stuff like that, filling the still and stuff. So that's probably a top of the morning before people get there is when we set up and stuff like that. But as far as that, you want to have your safety glasses. You have to have gloves on constantly. I mean, if not, you're just getting things everywhere. You can't stop being sticky at that point. So lab coats and stuff like that is not something we enforce. We have them for them and stuff, but it's not something we enforce. It's your own clothes, so it's your call on that. We have a flammable cabinet that we keep everything in there constantly. We have a check-in list that takes things out, fills ISO ethyl bottles and stuff like that. So we try and be as safe as we can. We're in a fully sprinklered building and stuff too, so Maine's got pretty high up their standards and stuff. So we have a fully fire suppression system and stuff. Smoke detectors those smoke detectors go off when we pour warm media in a room. So they're pretty sensitive.
Well, that's good. Like, I want to reiterate, I've heard so many stories, friends have been hurt by the fires that those heat guns start, especially
that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Especially when there's solvents around, because that's the combo, right? You can burn yourself on a heat gun. You want to wear your PPE, your gloves, for a reason, and your safety glasses for the splatter. But having those flammable solvents for just for cleaning, even, right? Or if you're winterizing, which you wouldn't do in a hydrocarbon lab.
We still do that. We have a walk-in freezer that we still do that and stuff. We still do, RSO runs and stuff like that. So it still definitely needs winterization and stuff like that too.
Gotcha.
Our big thing with cleaning and stuff like that is we use a dunk tank. We don't spray clean and stuff like that. We try and keep the fumes to a minimum and stuff like that. So it's pretty contained. Obviously, everything's in a C1D2 room, so it's constant airflow going through and stuff. But there's always a risk, so you just have to keep that in their mind when they touch things like that what they're doing. So
right, so you have the heat gun, just it's not even allowed in the same room as the dunk tank.
Yeah, it's pretty much just sits there in the corner pretty much, and then when they use it, like I said, we plan ahead. We have plenty of vacuum ovens, so if you're going to try and clear things, we can put an oven to 200 degrees and you can leave it in there overnight, and you can pour it out in the morning or something. There's not a dire need. But again, it's just when you get to the end and it's that thick, you got to use things like that. So.
Yeah, you talked about the flammable cabinets. Can you go over more of the chemical handling and storage procedures that you have?
So we pretty much only keep on-hand ethanol and ISO. And those are obviously in the containers they come with. They come with all their hazards on them and stuff like that. Those things are all facing the forward. Any new employee gets the buddy system pretty much and kind of gets the walkthrough for pretty much a week, if not more, and kind of shows them how to do it. We have taps on all of our 5 gallons that use for pours instead of them opening the bottle and stuff like that. So we try and make it as user friendly, as simple as possible, minimize the spills and stuff like that. But there's still tons of things. We have limonene in there that we use for just cleaning glass and stuff, which has to be in the cabinet because it's a flammable, but it's things that we very rarely touch and stuff. It's just ethanol and ISO is all we usually kind of mess with and stuff. So as long as we teach somebody that's new what they're doing, I feel comfortable of what they're doing and stuff like that. And then we have, like I said, per state, they have the login for everything that goes in and out of that flammable cabinet has to get logged too. So.
Oh, it's just tracking everything.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you say the top 5 mistakes that cannabis labs should like avoid for the safety procedures?
I think the biggest one, because states don't enforce it, is the booth. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't even need booths in the states that they're in. I know when I was in Arizona, they didn't need a booth, so it's kind of
For a
Wild
butane
Wild West and
system.
stuff like that. Yeah, it's crazy. So
Wow.
it's kind of crazy how lax people are versus other states and stuff like that. And then putting somebody in there that's not necessarily as experienced as they are is huge. Just a leak on the ground, you know what I'm saying? You have to have the right operator that can calm themselves down when they have a whole bunch of butane spilling out sticky all over the floor or something like that. Like, there's multiple scenarios where you have to have the right person versus somebody that's just going to walk out and leave the risk at the building, so it's
Right.
hard.
The operator is your first line of defense, right? Like you want that leak shut, not left alone inside the booth that might contain it unless someone propped a door open or brought something in that they weren't supposed to.
And most of the time, only leaks happen when the user is actually just not doing its job. So it comes down from that. It's simple, not double checking all your bolts and stuff like that. You kind of teach them that a double check sometimes not enough. Go ahead and do a triple check before you start sending gas and stuff like that. It takes a second for you to check all your bolts. So you want to make sure that you double check everything before you send it. You have another operator in the same booth. You have 8 other employees in the same building. You have a job that you want to come to tomorrow. Like, you want to take this seriously so we can come back tomorrow. So making sure that they understand that and stuff is huge. And then, like I said, finding the right operator. It takes an issue like that sometimes for it to show their face, but when it does, we kind of make sure we do the right thing.
Gotcha. So you already started touching it for like training and education. Like how are the personnel trained in the safety procedures and like ongoing education, that kind of stuff?
So the ongoing education is fun because that's what I like to do myself. I constantly keep trying to evolve myself and teach that to my staff. I like to always kind of be the first defense of what goes in and out of education and stuff like that. So then I can filter it and kind of train my guys on what we want to do. I never stop them from educating themselves and learning, but I want to make sure that you don't want to do dramatic changes in a process that you already have success, but we do want to try new things. So there's a fine line where you want to make sure that you can try it and as well as still not a loss, training new employees. It comes down to what part of the actual equipment or building are they going to do? Are they going to be a packager? Are they going to do distillation? Are they going to do rosin, or are they going to do hydrocarbon? Each one of those plays a different role on how they get trained. Obviously, the packager, you want to train them a little differently than you're going to train a hydrocarbon guy. But as far as safety and stuff like that, it's still the same procedure. They all touch the cabinet, they all do it the same way, and they all go through the same steps to learn how to do it. But a lot of the times, like, we won't train the packager of the safeties of, hydrocarbon issues, but we'll make sure that they know that booth is what's going on and how they need to be safe around that. So everyone needs to know that, things that happen around that booth is priority. Vapes and stuff. That's a huge thing that causes issues nowadays.
Wow. So everyone has to like know like the procedures. Like, hey, if the booth, like if this alarm goes off, what do you do? The
Obviously,
operator has to do one thing, but everyone else still has to be aware, right?
yeah, so pretty much, when the booth hits that LEL level and stuff like that off, it's got 2 levels. You're going to hit the first level and then you hit the second one. Usually the second one's going to be right after the first one. And that's usually when we wash socks and stuff like that. So it's very, very uncommon for us to, hit a sensor and stuff like that. It's lack of doing something, pulling the socks out at the wrong time and just getting the fumes at the sensor. It's a big booth. It's really hard to set those sensors off. So it's more or less just setting something in the wrong spot that it catches it and stuff like that. But again, that's what the booth's there for. So it tells the user that they're hitting levels, so it keeps them obviously on their edge. When the level goes off, that's when we have to go ahead and reset the booth and everything like that and make sure it's just something simple like that. Obviously, if it was something more severe than that, we want to go to the next step and make sure that it's, you know, put in the booth. Obviously, if there was a flame or anything like that, the fire suppression would obviously have already went off and stuff like that. So just being able to shut off all the equipment and keep it contained in the booth is going to be a priority and stuff like that. So humans are going to be the first priority, so making sure that they're okay, and then obviously going and checking the equipment and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Like, are there any specific certifications or qualifications to like work in the lab?
So honestly, there's not. I have nothing. I've learned from the internet and from past experiences and teaching myself. There's nothing that can teach somebody really this. It's hard too because like I guess there was a class in Las Vegas a couple years ago. I don't know if they still do it and stuff like that, but for somebody to go and to get the experience is only going to be from a past job that they were doing, more or less. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're an extractor, you go to another extracting job, you have experience. If you're not an extractor and you have experience from reading it off the internet, open blasting in your backyard and stuff like that, it's not necessarily something you're going to want to put on a resume. You know what I mean? So it's something you're just going to have to work your way into. And that's the same thing that happened to me too. It's kind of just started from a friend that had a loop, learn from him, use that experience to go to the next step and the next step and stuff like that, and not be scared to start from the bottom. There's always room to grow and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by actually putting in the grunt work to get to the top versus just jumping in and getting to the top.
Right. Like, because like you, or tell me about like your setup if you care to share like how big, how complicated is your extraction setup?
So we run an ETS and we run a Busy Bee, so it's constantly two machines running all day. So the throughput on that's pretty good. We have a rosin room, so that's constantly putting out throughput as well. And then we're packaging throughout the day. Distillation, we have carts coming in and out, you know what I'm saying? So it's a revolving circle of what goes in. We do toll processing. So that's a whole nother realm there. We have a dispensary we're trying to fill. We have a rec store that's opening next month. So it's going to be a lot of things that we're trying to do and then making sure that we can still all get it done at the right time. So it takes the right team, it really does, and making sure that everybody sees the end goal. If we just had employees clocking in and clocking out, we probably wouldn't get as far as we did, but we get a lot of people that show and care for the team. So it helps a lot.
So given that like there's not like any really certification that's available for these equipment, and it's like so safety critical to know what's going on, like how do you like train and qualify and like procedurize that process and make sure that everyone knows what they're doing when they're on that machine?
So it comes down, I think, really to like the type of person. It comes down from the resume and stuff like that. Obviously, when we're hiring people for those, we want to hit those marks in the resume. We look at the experience. Do they have experience at all? In certain places, if we're too busy to put the attention to an extractor to kind of focus on that heavy, we want to make sure that we hire somebody that has experience that we can kind of just show them their SOP. They know how to run a machine. They can continue our process versus me spending 2-3 weeks in there every day and training someone from ground zero to do it properly and understand it. It takes a lot more. So again, that goes back to somebody that has no experience or anything like that. You really have a hard shot to get in there at that experienced extractor job. So that's why a lot of the times it goes into starting at the bottom and speaking your knowledge and knowing what you're talking about. And then people will know. When people know what they're talking about, it's pretty easy to show. And, a packager that's talking more about extracting and stuff like that is not going to be a packager very long. So.
Right. It's pretty easy to just like we put them in front of the machine, and if they don't know what's going on, it becomes painfully obvious very quickly.
Yep. So
And it
that's why
sounds
a
like
lot of times we do the day trials and stuff like that to kind of see how comfortable they are around the machine. Because we have both of the most common machines in the industry. So either one of these, I'm going to put you in front of. You should be at least able to give me a run on the other side with me shadowing. So it's usually how we try and do it, but it doesn't always work like that.
Gotcha. Like, tell me about like, yeah, you started to talk about like the rosin and the carts and stuff. Like, what kind of products do you guys offer? Like, what's your product range?
We probably offer everything that we can possibly think of, and we're constantly trying to think of new things as well too. So out here, since I said we do toll processing and stuff like that, you have clientele that come here and want to ask you for everything in the books. They see something online, they want it made. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the times it comes down into being able to, like I said, offer everything that we can constantly learn. There's certain things we're good at that isn't as stand out as the other ones and stuff like that. It comes down from reading people's material too. It You bring in someone's material that didn't store it properly for a year and they want to come out with some nice saucy batter. It's like you know what they're going to get at that side. So it's hard to give people everything. You want to make sure you try. We do everything rosin. Obviously, we do the specs there. We do food grade. We do dabbables. We do rosin pen. We do rosin gummies, and then hydrocarbon. We do all that. We do the consistencies, sugar batter, shatter. We do carts, cured, live, all that type of stuff. Diamonds. Honestly, diamonds don't do too much for us. They not the heaviest movers. So as long as they just stay on the shelf and they're there, we constantly see that. Same with shatter. People love shatter for some reason, but to me, I would rather have the same product and then more terpy consistency than shatter, but people still seem to tend to go back to the old days and like that too. So you want to make sure you keep that form too. And then distillate, we got all that. We got the gummies for distillate and stuff like that. And then obviously the distillate vapes and stuff too. So it's kind of a
Like,
wide.
what does make you prefer like a shatter over a batter? Like, is there a different effect, or is it like you said, like nostalgia for like the old days, or?
See, that's hard. You always try and ask yourself, why does this person like shatter? And then it comes back to like, how do they dab? You know what I'm saying? Are they dabbing the proper way? Are they dabbing on a stainless steel banger toward there's no flavor in their existence in concentrates? So it doesn't matter. They're trying to get that little 5-10% more, potency on shatter versus a batter that has more flavor and stuff like that. So I think it still comes back to actual education on the consumer. And I think that's the hardest thing to portray on people.
Like, are there different products have different benefits and different experiences, or like how like what kind of consumer education are you talking about here?
So consumer education as far as dabbing etiquette would be the start. You know what I mean? Like having a temperature range that people would actually know. Like if you ask somebody what temperature range they dab on, I bet you they would say what. So I mean that's a big thing right there too. So like just being able to enjoy what you're smoking. Like you smoke flower, you smoke it with a cigarette lighter and you enjoy it. It's a little different when you're taking a dab. You have to kind of hit that point of that flavor for that concentrate that is enjoyable. You know what I mean? And then that high right there is a completely different high than when you're hitting it at 750 and you're converting all that THCA to THC instantly and you're getting blasted. So there's a window, and it's really hard to kind of educate people if they don't want to teach themselves. If
Well,
people
tell
love.
us some of this dabbing etiquette. Like, I just know like heat it up and let it cool off for a certain amount of time until it
Yeah,
like
so I mean, like
tastes
if you
right.
know your own nail and stuff like that, then you could do that. But and then you go to your friend's house and you don't know his nail, then you're like, oh man, where do I start? So just being able to temperature gauge your own dabs and stuff like that needs to be a little bit more well known. There's multiple different things out there. There's dab right, there's terp timers and stuff like that you just set your nail right on top of it and actually gives you a true reading of what you want to actually hit and stuff like that. There's those certain peoples. That's why I think a lot of people in the certain age bracket like vapes. You know what I mean? Like there's that vape that has that great flavor because they're never burning it because that pen is keeping it at that temperature. So if they could get that flavor on a dab, like a Puffco, easy. You click a button and it keeps it at that setting. So that's pretty easy there. But again, once you go to the torch and nail and stuff like that, I feel like you start to lose people on actually doing it properly and stuff like that. But I think Puffco, that's where they take off on. There's multiple different on the go type things that make it easy, like electric and stuff like that, that make it user friendly. Like if your mom wanted to start dabbing, are you going to put a torch and a nail in front of her and say good luck? Like there's no way that somebody would feel safe doing that, as well as the look that they're going to give you by doing it. So I think that's the biggest thing there is getting over the realm of how it looks and stuff like that. It has huge benefits. I mean, for instance, once you're starting to talk about full spectrum, whether it be RSO or live resins and stuff like that, those things are huge once you put them into edibles and stuff like that, or even just eating it like just alone is huge for people that have medical benefits that they can play off of this and stuff like that. Remember, it's not always about getting high. We always have our own things that we want to do and stuff like that. This all actually started once I was in a head-on collision on my motorcycle, broke 19 bones,
Oh
stopped
man.
taking prescription pills because of dabs. So it just started there, and then you obviously evolve into things that I started on red hots. So, I mean, like, I know what my lungs had, and I just don't want to have somebody that starts right now today to ever experience that.
Right, because like there's better things now, right?
For sure. So that's, I think, comes down to just knowledge and teaching them, but it's really hard to teach every person.
Right. And what are some of the medical benefits that like you got or have experienced or that you know about like the medical benefits?
So, I mean, obviously anything we're going to relate to with CBD and THC combined is going to be a great medical alleviation for multiple different things, anti-inflammatories and stuff like that too. But my biggest thing that I use for cannabis is kind of just, I mean, I'm always in pain. You know what I mean? Our knees are always there and they're always hurting. So once you get them rebuilt once, they're just always going to hurt. So you
Ooh.
just constantly got to just keep it out of your mind. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is to not think about it. And I think that's the easiest thing for cannabis to do to me, is to kind of get my mind on a even playing field instead of me just sitting here and, grinding about achy knees or something like that. I do that at home. Don't worry. I do that at home. But during work, we want to truck through. So
Nice, I like that. I want to pick on something because you mentioned like that CBD mix. Like, why is 50-50 like THC CBD or like other percentages? Like, I want that to be more popular because like everyone wants like that 90% THC.
yeah, I mean, realistically, there's certain demographic that wants that fucking high THC and stuff like that. You want to keep it down there. And honestly, CBD is only going to work its best when you bond it with something like THC, where your body can actually accept it like that too. So a lot of the times when you do those mixes, like a 5-to-1, a 10-to-1 and stuff like that, that's where you're actually going to benefit the most. You just take CBD alone, you got to keep that thing in your system every day. You know what I mean? It just has to be in there every day. So you just want to constantly be feeding your body on stuff like that to be able to constantly be able to feel the effects. People want to have it be an instant relief, and it's just not what it is. So it's kind of that that image where people want that instant satisfaction like a high, and it's just not there. So it takes a little bit more work on people. And if they don't see instant satisfaction or gratitude from it, it's hard to get them to continue buying it and stuff like that. So it takes some belief.
So am I hearing it correctly that like if you're taking like a CBD product for pain, that you have to take it every day consistently at like probably a pretty high dose to like really see the benefit?
For
And that
sure.
you
I mean, you
feel
definitely want to keep it in your body, because your body is going to absorb that really quick and stuff. So it's just going to dilute it down and stuff. So having it in your body constantly is the only way that you're actually going to be able to see the benefits for it to be able to work and stuff like that. There's so many different products that you can use this in and stuff like that make it any type of user that can find a product that they can use it, whether it's a liquid vape, whether it's a gummy that's CBD, or even just a distillate form where they can just, make it at home by themselves and stuff like that. But, once you mix it with THC and stuff like that, you're going to have that game changer for sure.
Oh, because like the THC gives you that like instant feedback, like, hey, you are affected now by this, and it's helping you.
Yeah. So even if you're like doing it on just like a small dose, 10-1 and stuff like that. Just having it bond together like that in your body helps a lot.
I've actually been hearing a lot of like medical research, like some drugs have a higher perceived effectiveness, like not even cannabis, but like other like ADHD medications or anything like that, have a higher perceived effectiveness when they have like an instant effect, even if the total effects of both types of drugs are the same.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps the user. It gets that, hate to say it, but the placebo effect, and they can feel their effect of what they're taking. You know what I mean? So you don't want to take a vitamin that you're not getting any use out of and stuff like that. So
Right.
once you
It
keep it in your body,
reinforces that like, hey, this is helping me. I need to take this every day, and then you
for
get more
sure.
benefit just from like that feedback. Do you have any advice for like patients on like how to choose a product and like because like, there's so many options out there. Like, how would you like start someone like, hey, I have this condition. What should you get?
Yeah, I guess it's going to start from the condition, right? And then you don't want to scare somebody. That's the biggest thing too. You don't want to scare somebody out of the marijuana industry because, like I said, you don't want to. I'm an extractor. I do extracting. I want to get you dabbing the best thing I got. First thing, you know what I mean? They're going to get so high that they're going to be so scared to do it again. There's no enjoyment out of that. So it's treading lightly on knowing the person as well as knowing what their end goal is trying to be, and start them off slow. You want to build that tolerance. Once you build that tolerance, you can kind of play with it and stuff like that. It's the same thing with edibles. You hit that peak on edibles to where it's overdosing. It's so uncomfortable, and you're in there for a good 4 to 8 hours where you're riding this ride that you're just, you know what I mean? So it's like, I would hate to put somebody in that position on their first experience. So it's treading lightly, getting them started slowly and stuff like that. A great start would be something like those CBD mixes and stuff like that, to where it kind of dulls down the high like that, you know what I mean? And kind of works them into how it feels and stuff like that. Vapes are a nice, easy start too. You can kind of prepare yourself on how big of a hit you're going to take instead of just getting blasted off a dab. So it
Yeah,
it
the
all
vapes are so
depends,
much easier to like to dose out, right? Or it's actually hard to
easy.
get as much out of a vape as it is a
And so,
dab.
like I said, your lungs, like if your lungs can only take so much, and if you're gonna, take a dab at 600 degrees, 700 degrees, that initial pull is gonna be so much more THC than that little vape pen would have got. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been scared by like eating that edible in college and just like
all those undosed ones that your friend made in their kitchen by some gram or something that they just rock everyone's world. Yeah,
yes.
it's hard to go back to that. And then once they realize what dosing is and stuff like that, and having it broken down in edibles to where each dose is measured and stuff like that, it gives them a little peace of mind to know that it's a little bit more serious than that. We want to make sure that people can get the benefits out of the product as well as being able to keep it legitimate too. We don't want to have that vibe of having like, just a cookie and stuff like that you're just going to get high of undosed and stuff like that. Like, it's just, we're in the medical industry now, so it's a little different.
Yes. We want to make it a more professional, like process oriented experience, and have all the products for like the people who just want to get blasted, but the legitimizing the therapeutic benefits and really like getting good product labeling, good dosing out there and making it accessible.
For sure. I mean, it's easier to get people to, start something like that they're going to know what they're getting into than just going in blindly and stuff like that too. So, and that's why I really like the adult use side. Everything comes with, test results and fully THC test results that tell the consumer what they're getting and stuff like that. So they can kind of know more of what they're setting themselves up with versus just going in blindly. So it's nice.
Yeah, I think that is one of my favorite things about like the industry and making it legal is like, hey, now we have labeled containers that tell you exactly what's inside of it and what you should expect out of it.
Any medical person's going to accept that and they're going to like that. If I was going to go and buy something like an RSO syringe or something like that I'm going to dose out, to have a test result on that breaks it down for me is ideal. Same thing with distillate. That takes me and goes home, and now I know what I'm dosing myself into. So it's really nice. I do agree with you.
And just since you mentioned distillate, and I know you run a bit of our equipment on that, is there anything that any tricks on that you like to do to get that like high purity oil out of the distillation process?
So unfortunately for us, we get to kind of pick and choose the bread and butter that we get to distill versus people that toll process for clients that, outside in California, when I was on the west side, like they were toll processing distillate material that was trash. So they had to do so much more refinement and winterization to get some type of product that was even something. You know what I mean? So we got a little lucky out here, and we actually that's already in its 70s or 80s, or we start with RSO that we have the proper equipment that we can winterize and filter properly that gets into the high 90s. Our last result that we just got last week was 91.6%. So that was a first
Ooh,
pass. So I really can't complain about that.
nice. Yeah, like it is a real joy to like when you control all the process and all the steps have been done correctly up to that, so that you're not trying to like fight at the end to like clean it up and fix any
It's so
mistakes.
much easier. I used to do that in Arizona just to try and make a product so we could make a buck and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's so much more work. So hats off to the people that still do that and stuff out there, because it's a completely different game. You know what I mean? Like we actually have processors. Like the oldest material that I see nowadays is anywhere from 6 months to a year, that's stored in a dry room that still will, bump out 15%. So it's not anything that I'm dealing with that they were. So I'm lucky and I feel bad for them, but with your type of equipment and stuff like that, dude, I bet you it makes it super easy for them.
Yeah, yeah. Like that is the cool thing about distillation is like you really can. It takes extra effort, but you can take the trash off the floor and like turn it into maybe not the perfect best material on the first pass, but you can clean it up and make it into something that's highly pure and looks okay.
I mean, anything usable, it doesn't matter where it came from in the plant that has THC. That's what I always tell myself. I was like, they're growing THC and we're extracting the THC. It doesn't matter how much plant material, we're extracting the THC out of it. So it just comes down to the point of how much work and how much yield are we going to get out of it to make it that much worth it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter where it comes from. Like even if on spills and stuff like that, like the way you clean up a spill shows the world to me. You can't just show up and spray ISO on a paper towel on a spill and throw it in the trash and tell me that you're, you know, around the block. You got to be able to learn things and stuff like that, absorb things and reuse it. Everything, every spill is still captured and still reused. Nothing gets thrown away. It's huge too. We even work with somebody that extracts all of our byproduct, and he does all the hard work. So he takes all of our byproduct, extracts it, and gives us a return to distillate. So it's pretty cool. He does all the hard work for us, and I just store my trash.
That's really amazing. Like I do wonder like we have so many waste streams like these terpenes and then the biomass, like how can we reuse or the residues, like what can we do with those, because like it's not a lot of volume but like there's valuable stuff in there and like hope.
It's insane what people overlook. That I mean, when we first came out here and stuff like that, we were throwing it in the trash. It was insane. So now it became to a point where, every 3 to 4 weeks, we're stockpiling up 500 to 1,000 pounds of pre-ran material that we're giving someone for a 50-50 split of 4 liters back in my hand of things I was going to throw away. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. That's totally worth it. And then he gets the 4 liters too. So it's great.
That's so cool. I love to see that recycle and it's squeezing that last little bit out.
All the way till it's gone. Once it's gone, then we throw it away.
Yes. Do you have any favorite products from your lineup? Like, what's your favorite flavor?
I don't know. Flavors and consistencies are two different things.
Ooh, okay.
I'll go through any type of consistency that we make as our batters, and I'll pick and choose and stuff like that, because it's funny that the flour, I'm a really big gas person on the flour, but once we start getting into concentrates and the right consistencies, man, I'll go for the citrus, I'll go for the tangies. It's really strange. I'll jump around on the flavors and stuff. The gas ones are great and stuff like that, but you take a couple dabs of GMO in the middle of the day and you're struggling for the rest of it. So we want to make sure that we have the right ones. So, but I'm a big sucker for batter. And I think that's why I put all the effort and experience that I had was to train and teach people our batter consistencies are our bread and butter. And it shows in our sales too. I mean, we sell 10 times as much as any other consistency in batter. So it's nice to have that, captured audience that I would like to say enjoy it too. You don't get feedback from everybody, but I guess it just selling on the storefront is enough appreciation for me.
Right. And and you're going to be focused on like what you're passionate about, right? Like it shows you're passionate about batter, and like I'll bet you your batters are like the absolute best, and like that's why they go.
And so honestly, I try everything, like everything. I want to make sure that this product makes the standards that it can go to the shelf. I mean, again, we have the comfortability to make it. If it doesn't taste the way we want it to, we don't want to give it to the consumer. We don't want to have that bad taste or that bad rep in their mind. You know what I'm saying? We can turn it into distillate and put terps on it, and it's a vape pen. So we want to make sure that things that do hit the storefront hit all those check marks for that consumer. So I think that's another big thing that plays an effect on what they get and stuff.
That's awesome. It's been really great talking to you and getting to know your history and learning about Green Truck. And I appreciate your time to be on our mini cast. Everyone go follow Green Truck Farms and check out all the cool things behind the scenes that they post in the lab. Andrew, is there an Instagram that you can share?
Yeah, it's Green Truck Extracted 3.0. We'll find all my work down there and all the team right there for sure. Yep, greentruckfarms.com.
Cool. Don't forget, you can find Beaker and Wrench on Instagram. Our handle is at Beaker and Wrench, and check out our YouTube page for more episodes of our minicast. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It's a wrap.